Okay, so I want to talk a little IU football here. Uh, IU still not getting the respect that they deserve, as far as I'm concerned. Considering, even though considering they're a number 5 seed, number 7 seed in the college football playoff, if it was to start today. So I was watching some TikTok last night and came across a video with a young lady named Mackenzie Brooks. And Mackenzie Brooks stated that IU has no business being seeded number 7 in the college football playoff and no business being a number 5 seed overall due to their strength of schedule. She said if they were scheduled in the SEC that they would be underdogs to 8 of their teams. So I just wanted to address this first, and I'm going to talk about Michigan and Ohio State and some others. Indiana football's been down for years, Mackenzie Brooks. Do you ever take that into consideration, that last year they won 3 games, and it was last year or the year before that a team named Akron took them into overtime? Okay? So IU is alive and well. And let's talk about the strength of schedule. They can't play anybody that's not scheduled on their schedule, okay? They can't just go out and play teams out of the SEC, but I can promise you this, they will start playing a tougher schedule because Curt Cignetti will make sure of that. So let's talk about this for a minute. You wanted to talk about Michigan. Whoever the man was there on the video with you were asking him, who is the strongest team that they've beat? And you were saying Michigan. But yet they were a 2-touchdown favorite and they barely beat Michigan. How can you barely beat a team when you were a 2-touchdown favorite? Do you realize that's only the 3rd time that IU has beat Michigan in, I think, the last 30-some years? Think about that for a minute, Mackenzie. There was a coach named Bill Lynch that coached the Hoosiers after Terry Hepner tragically died of cancer. And every time he played Michigan, the refs screwed him. So that's one of the reasons IU wasn't winning, and it's also another reason that Bill Lynch got fired. So let's continue on. It's not IU's fault that the defending national champion, Michigan, is having quarterback issues. But let me tell you one issue they're not having. That's defense. IU won the game. Get over it. Sometimes you win by 1, sometimes you win by 67, like they did against Western Illinois. Let's talk about strength of schedule again. Florida International University, Western Illinois, and Charlotte. That was their 3 off Big Ten games. They killed them. They've got a combined winning percentage of 9. But guess what, Mackenzie? That was the schedule. That was the schedule. Let's talk about their 3rd game where they go into Pasadena and beat UCLA 42-13. Oh, but UCLA's down. Who cares? They went to the Rose Bowl and steamrolled UCLA 42-13. Okay? So, let's talk about Washington. Washington was the national championship runner-up. They're 6-5 this year. Indiana beat them. And beat them good. And I'm sure what you're wanting to say is, well, Michigan and Washington are down this year. Well, IU's been down for decades. We can't help that this is the year of their resurgence thanks to Curt Cignetti. But think about what you're saying, Mackenzie. Indiana has a coach who has made a name for himself. And he decided to take the job at Indiana University, where they just offered him an 8-year deal. Okay? But what you're failing to realize is that the strength of schedule is one thing, but they're absolutely steamrolling their opponents. Why? Because Cignetti was able to bring 13 players from James Madison, a nationally ranked team last year, over to the IU program. So we have 13 people from James Madison. He brought, I believe it was 7 staff members. Plus IU still has some very good players that stuck around, and he was able to utilize the transfer portal. IU is not a cupcake, okay? IU is a very good football team. And guys like me who've been around for years and longed for it and waited for it, we're ecstatic about it, okay? Because IU is the real deal. Now, let's get back to Michigan real quick. You want to talk about Indiana only beat Michigan 20-15. Who cares? It's still a victory. But let's talk about something. I already mentioned Michigan's quarterback woes, but their defense is still as stout as any Michigan defense has been. So why did they only win by 5? They were a 2-touchdown favorite. Well, Price got knocked out. He laid there like a rag doll, one of their IU's best offensive weapons. Didn't come back in the game. Ellison's head on one tackle slammed off the ground twice. He didn't come back in until I believe it was the fourth quarter. Surratt caught an early touchdown pass. And then he dropped 3 passes that was right in his hands. Probably the worst game he's ever had in his career. So when you take all that into consideration, that was another touchdown for sure that was dropped by Surratt. So that would have been 27-15. But then your leading running back and one of your biggest playmakers is out for the game. So the point is, IU still won. So let's look at Ohio State. You want to talk about strength of schedule. Do you realize that Ohio State and Indiana have played 5 of the same teams? Well, they will have before it's all done. IU's not played Purdue yet, and Ohio State's not played Michigan yet. That's the 2 games that they haven't played. But in the other games that have been played, Ohio State's scored 135 points. Indiana scored 164 points in the 4 common games. Now, if Indiana's strength of schedule keeps them from even being number 5, how does Ohio State's strength of schedule get them a number 2 ranking overall? Makes no sense. So what you're saying, of course, makes no sense. Let's look at Oregon. Oregon and Indiana have 6 common opponents. They beat Michigan worse than IU did by 16 points. But Indiana steamrolled Michigan State, scoring 16 more than Oregon did. And IU scored 8 more points against UCLA than Oregon did. So, who's a better team there when it comes down to strength of schedule? Let's look at Penn State, number 4 in the nation. They beat Washington by 15 more, but Indiana beat UCLA by 13 more. They have 4 on the same schedule. So, Ohio State has 5 of the same games that IU played. Oregon has 6 of the same teams that IU played. And Penn State has 4. And they're ranked 1, 2, 4, and 5. But yet, IU don't deserve to be there. You make no sense. Most of you talking heads don't make sense. Because you're not out there playing the game. They put you in a studio and they let you talk. You don't know what you're talking about. So let's look at the overall statistics with Ohio State and Indiana. Points per game, Indiana's number 3 in the nation. Ohio State's number 8. Yards per game, Indiana's 36, Ohio State's 10. Points per play, Indiana leads the nation, number 1. Ohio State, number 5. Yards per play, IU 16, Ohio State 3. Third down conversion, Indiana's number 13, Ohio State's number 36. Fourth down conversion, IU's 53, Ohio State's 11. Red zone scoring, here we go, IU's number 1, Ohio State's number 2. So, in comparison, if you look at everything here on paper, let's look at defensive points per game. IU 7, Ohio State 1. Yards per game, IU 3, Ohio State 2. Points per play, IU 7, Ohio State 1. Yards per play, IU 4, Ohio State 2. Everything's so close on paper. But what comes down is The games aren't played on paper. The games are played on the field. And we're going to find out this Saturday who the better team is. I'm predicting IU is going to go in and steamroll Ohio State. And I hope to God it happens. And save this video, because I'm man enough to say, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I really believe IU is going to win this game and win it big. Here's the main reason why. Nebraska came to IU. IU beat Nebraska 56-7 after being dogged out by Will Compton, dogging the state of Indiana, dogging Indiana University. Well, IU steamrolled Nebraska 56-7. Ohio State had to come from behind at home to beat Nebraska 21-17. So tell me on paper who the better team is. I think this Saturday, the Ohio State-Indiana game is going to be epic. I think it's going to be one of the better games of the year. It wouldn't bother me if it comes down to being 41-40, as long as IU gets the victory. I hope I'm wrong, because I hope IU beats them and beats them big. If anything, this is the year that they could do it. So I'm just hoping that they do it. So for all you talking heads who just want to talk and never give IU respect, you know, it's the same old, same old. We get it. We're IU. If it was Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, anybody else, which I already showed you Ohio State's schedule, it's almost identical to IU's, IU would be getting the props. But all you talking heads, just keep on talking. The games are played on the field. I hope that IU wins Saturday. Maybe that'll finally shut some of you up. Have a great day, everybody.